All right. So now off to business.
Yep.
I feel like so often artists want a manager, right? Super valuable player. It's a little disheartening when I feel like artists are in a space where they feel dependent on a manager, right? And I think that's the start of an unhealthy relationship.
Right.
I don't think a manager is super important, but it's your business, right?
Yeah.
If I have an idea and I found a company, which is what's happening when an artist decides to go on their journey and make records, I have to also know that I've got to run that business until the right player comes along that I can put in the seat of a CEO.
Yeah.
And I really see the manager as that for an artist, right? So when you're picking a manager, you have to look at how that person carries themselves.
Right.
When they tell you something, do they follow through on it? Does it get done? If it doesn't get done, are they accountable? Do they come to you and address that they weren't able to get it done and why? Or do they just, act like they never said anything or things like that, right? These are character touch points that you need to be very cognizant of in choosing the CEO of your business, right?
So you would say in context, we're talking about the artist being the visionary.
Yes.
Like a founder, so to speak, that the manager would be the CEO of running that operation.
Yes, it'd be their job to run the operations, right? So then that means while the artist is in the studio making the product or on set filming a video or meeting with the creative team to get those elements into place, the manager is the one going into conference rooms and conference calls and having conversations on behalf of the artist, right? And building the deals and building the relationships around that artist, right? I know a lot of talented artists that didn't get certain places because people didn't want to deal with that manager, right? Or talented artists that were so talented that they got to huge places but couldn't maintain it because of the reputation of the managers, right? So choose your manager wisely is all I'm saying. Let's get into some slides and kind of talk about some of the key responsibilities, who they are not.
Let's do it.
So what they are: key advisor, confidant, CEO of the talent's career, like we said earlier, facilitator, meaning, they do go out and hustle and network and use their relationships to facilitate new relationships and opportunities for the artist. The right-hand man, the strategist, right? So when I say right-hand man, this is someone that you as an artist should feel understands your vision, has a common vision, and you guys are strategizing together on the daily on how to build this business. All right. What they are not your financier. It is not the manager's responsibility to finance your career. There are times where a manager will put money up with an artist to get things to the next level, but know contractually that as soon as money comes in, that money comes back to the manager. That truly is not the manager's job because they do not have an ownership stake in your business, right? They are an employee to you, the artist, to the company, right? So they are not the financier. And again, going back to my statement earlier, they are not your savior. Your role is not to be dependent on the manager. Your manager adds value to a business that you are going to build with or without him or her.
It takes the responsibility or puts responsibility on the artist to, again, approach it from a business standpoint. And not just, this hope and a prayer that someone else is going to take care of the other logistics. They just get to be a creative. It goes back to what we've been saying throughout the entire curriculum, which is we have to have this understanding that this is a business, right? It's not the music nonprofit. It's a music business, and you have to approach it with the same respect that you would if you were in finance, if you were in construction, if you're whatever the case is, you have to approach your business in the same manner.
Yeah. And, and to that point, like your manager is also, the one that is responsible for negotiating your deals, right? So again, how do you want to be represented in building out deals? If you do the right things as an artist, you're going to get to go in and build relationships and negotiate deals with some of the most powerful people in not only in music, but in media, and in the brand world. Like who is that person going in to represent you, and how are they leaving people feeling about you and them during and after a negotiation. So their job is negotiating deals, and just really bringing all resources they can to the table to help you guys bring your vision to life.
Yeah. Let's talk about, and we're jumping the gun, but let's talk about from the standpoint of compensation, what that looks like, especially early on in a manager's career. And you hear horror stories of what that looks like in some instances, right? Yeah. But from a standpoint of a focused artist that has the diligence and the know-how to make those things happen, and a very and an advocate for that talent and that creative, what are we looking at from a compensation standpoint where managers are concerned?
So the way management is structured is that the manager eats when the artist eats, right? So it's built to be a win-win together. I've seen deals anywhere from 10% to 25%. And 25% is more in a space when you're signing to a big team.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're signing to a management company that comes with that a day-to-day manager, and then what I like to call a rainmaker.
Right.
And then there might be a whole lot of other areas of support. There might be graphic design in that. There might be, a lot of different things that company provides for its artists, right? So, 10 to 20% is standard compensation, or is compensation, 25% being on the high end, 10% being on the low end. And then usually the sweet spot is that 15 to 20% in overall management compensation. Sometimes when artists get really big, they move out of a percentage basis, right? And they'll just pay an annual salary because it's like, hey, I make $30 million a year or something like that. It doesn't make sense for me to be paying my manager 15% or even 10%, right? I'll pay you $1.5 million a year, and that should be good as far as my contribution to your company, right? So those things, everything is negotiable, but those are kind of the different areas that I've seen management compensation go.
So you alluded to this too, in terms of the type of artist and where I would be from a career standpoint, a new and budding artist from a compensation standpoint, and then I want to move it in terms of the type of manager you would need as well. Would I have, if I'm a newer artist that doesn't have a lot of work going on, I know that, you talk about I eat when the artist eats. Well, what if the artist isn't eating at that point? Does that change my percentage of compensation? Is there a scale that happens in that regard? In terms of what I would be compensated for as an artist? So
I'm going to just use myself as an example, right? Because I started out in a management space, and I felt I was confident in myself. I felt good and about what I was going to bring to the table for an artist. So I would always want 15 to 20% as an individual manager, right? And early on in an artist's career, when I was a young executive and an artist is just starting out, we're both brand new. So we're both coming together to build something together, right? And so, cool, I got 20%, you got 80%, and we're rocking. And then the goal is that that's an intimate, close, two-person company that you're building to start with, right? The goal is that you guys do some cool things together, grow some momentum, and then next thing you know, labels are coming on board and want to get involved, and publishers want to get involved, and brands want to get involved, etc. And what may happen at some point is you may come across a record label executive that says, hey, what do you guys think about growing the team? What if we add in a Rock Nation or a Maverick type management company to take this thing to the next level? Galen, you've done a great job, but these guys have built the careers of Rihanna and Britney Spears and Madonna and things like that. They have experiences around the globe, and they have experiences in radio and in touring and things like that you could really learn from. And so the hope is that you have a manager who's humble and excited about that opportunity for growth, not only for the artist, but also for him or herself, right? And says, I'm down. And you go and you have those meetings and they work out well. And then you get to go into a system like that where now a manager from one of those companies becomes kind of more your rainmaker manager, right? And I would now be in that day-to-day role, but I would have a mentor and I would have someone to open a door that I can't open so that me and my artist can build new relationships and both of our careers grow. And in doing that, I would be willing to go, hey, we're going to bring on Rock Nation as a management partner. And in doing so, I'm willing to drop my percentage from 20 to 10 to make sure that they can come in and get 10 or 15, whatever they need to feel comfortable coming in and helping us build this still growing career, right? Because we're still not there. But at that point, for a management company like that to want to come on board, they've got to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Sure. Yeah, and it financially needs to make sense for them as well, so that everyone's eating. I think interesting concept that you're touching on too as well is to understand that a manager can change and their role can change throughout your career. A manager and someone that's an artist that's in their legacy phase, right? Springsteen, Madonna, you talk about things like Nirvana, like like deceased artists, right? Michael Jackson. Those managers look drastically different than what an artist or what a manager would look like for a new and budding artist, and even one that's in the height of their career. So with that understanding, you'll constantly see shifting points in artists and the managers that they choose to work with based kind of on the phases of the career that they're in. So this kind of establishment development phase, they may hire one individual that has the ability to create opportunity with them on a certain level. But when we get into this phase of now I'm working with the firm, I'm working with Rock Nation, Maverick, now that's a different, I'm getting into the superstar phase of my career. And so I need more support. I need different types of managers that can create different opportunities. And so the main point here to try to drive home is don't be afraid to make sure that the partners that you have on your team are well suited and established to get you to the phase of the career that you're working at. And if they're not in that phase, then can you create a partnership or an opportunity for them to be the day-to-day and bring on somebody else on board like we've been talking about? Or do you just swap someone out completely and move them into the phase of that career? And if you do, then you get into sunset clauses and changing of income and how that happens over time. But really just this understanding that your team doesn't have to stay stagnant depending on where you are and what you're doing in terms of your career.
Yeah. And that's interesting. You talk about artists that are in their legacy phase or in their more of a deceased phase. Like, it's like, at that point, you kind of need people around you that really understand intellectual property and the value of that and figuring out how to navigate that from a legacy standpoint, and less as do you need the person that's like an amazing marketing mind and this and that, but you need people that understand wealth development around IP, and you need people that, also maybe are doing more things in the brand space or acting space, right? To cross you over into, licensing, crossing you over into different areas. But great points.